a new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast. Our second week of Halloween Horrors 2023 is upon you in your listening ear holes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, assume you're listening with your ears. If not, then, you know.
Unless you're a starfish and you listen with another hole.
Or a fly.
Yeah. Or fly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See what I did there?
Yeah, you did. I see that plug.
Yeah, and the movies are going to get a little more horrifying here this week and next. And this week, we'll discuss it more a little bit. But a movie that, I had seen before, but had been, probably 20, 25 years since I watched it. And I actually kind of forgot how grotesque it is. And it's grotesque in a weird way because most of the movie is not grotesque. Then it just absolutely fucking unloads you in the last 20 minutes.
It saves it for the end, man. Yeah. It's you don't see it coming.
and we'll talk about that in a bit here. And but otherwise, man, it's finally some little better weather here amongst us in Texas, which is
it's nice. Getting nicer. Hopefully Halloween's this nice.
Yeah, and now that you said that, it'll probably fucking rain or something. Thanks for
oh man. Oh, geez. I hope not.
Good job there, man.
More candy for us.
Yeah. You're not supposed to eat the candy you buy. You're supposed to go get candy.
You can sample it, before you give it out to make sure it's good stuff,
Yeah, make sure that your mom didn't put drugs in it or something.
Yeah, I know, right?
Which is such a myth, man.
I wonder what started that.
Well, it started in Houston.
Actually. Okay.
Yes, there was a guy here in Houston in the Heights area that put some needles in some candy, and in like 1977, 78. And one child did, I don't know if, I don't want to say the story wrong. I can't recall if he died or choked or whatever, but had to go was injured by it.
Yeah.
And the guy was caught and put in jail. And it became this nationwide thing after that to all of a sudden have to search your candy. But there has been like less than 10 cases, I think, if I remember reading right, across the United States in 30, 40 years since that happened. So it's extremely rare for anyone to put needles in candy, drugs in candy. It doesn't really happen. But that became a thing where you're supposed to search people's candy, but it's extremely, extremely rare. I think your chances, I knock on wood, I don't want you to harm me, but I think your chances of getting hit by a car on Halloween are probably greater. People driving.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Not paying attention to children and stuff.
Yeah. They try neighborhood hop and stuff like that.
So,
do it how we used to do. You walked, sometimes you walked like 2 miles that night and you somehow dragged your ass home,
And, and if there is something, there's nothing wrong with a little LSD in the candy, man. I mean, kids will just trip out a little bit. They'll trip balls, eat some candy, and they'll go to fucking sleep,
Exactly.
I mean, they'll be all right. Whatever doesn't hurt them makes them stronger.
There you go.
But we are totally joking. No one's called the police in the Rebel Radio podcast.
Yeah, please don't.
LSD and kids candy. Obviously a joke. If you don't know, we're very tongue-in-cheek by now after 300 and plus episodes, and I don't know what to tell you. You don't.
Yeah.
Our sarcasm.
If you don't know me by now, then you never will.
That's right. How have you been, man? Good week?
Oh, yeah. Good week, man. I've been looking at the Cinemark. They've got some, anniversary movies coming up that they're re-releasing in theaters. So they're going to re-release The Exorcist. They're going to re-release Hocus Pocus and the original Halloween. So, and Trick or Treat.
But why? You can watch all of those streaming.
Yeah, I think out of all of them, I might go see Halloween on the big screen.
Sorry, Winter, friend of the show. Movie sucks.
It only sucks because, Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't show the girls.
It still sucks. Such a boring, creep-ass movie. And Hocus Pocus sucks, too. Sorry, Disney fans. It's stupid. It's not good.
It's better than the second one.
Well, I mean, that was a given. We knew they were going to make the second one. It was pretty good. It's like I mean, most of these legacy sequels. I mean, what has been good? Really. I mean,
Scream was successful. Scream
Were those
5?
legacy sequels though? Because the problem with those is they were still making them throughout the years. There wasn't a 20-year gap between them.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's my thing.
There's only a few. I guess Top Gun for sure.
Top Gun's been the best one, absolutely.
Yeah.
How these legacy sequels, and there's been a few other okay ones.
Tron, I like Tron Legacy.
Tron's what started it. That's where the term legacy comes from.
Yeah.
Tron Legacy. That's kind of what caused it. Started it. But I mean, really spectacularly good ones. I mean, it's easily Top Gun Maverick. It's been the best one.
I think the best thing you can do is do a legacy prequel, which is one that I watched this week. I'll get into it when we cross that bridge.
But yeah, and yeah, man, it's been a week. I'm over it. Ready for the weekend. I mean, it is Friday night. Friday the 13th, by the way. It's the day we were recording this.
So remember to leave milk and cookies out for Jason Voorhees.
Oh, is that the secret?
That's the secret.
And yeah, man, it's my boss was on vacation this week, so it's been exhausting to say the least. I've been going to bed. Other than the night the Astros played, they finished their series. I think I've gone to bed about 9:30 almost every night, except for tonight. I've been tired. I've been full old man status this week, going to bed,
getting that rest in.
Yeah, no lie. And,
I gotta have my juice, so I gotta go to bed by a certain time.
And it, man. I'm you hitting that old, like I said, hitting the old man status, man.
You're not drinking Ensure, are you? Are you drinking Ensure? Okay, good.
No, but I might have to start doing the Metamucil thing soon. The doctor's kind of recommending more fiber.
Fiber's not bad.
Yeah, So, yeah. But I still feel like that's an old person thing to drink more Metamucil. Yeah.
Well, it helps combat the carbs. So if you eat like a slice of cake, you have some fiber with it. It's not so bad.
Right. But man, I mean, I don't know. I haven't researched yet. I hope if I do, I hope it doesn't taste like ass. That's all. So yes, kids, remember when you get older, more fiber in your diet, less sugar, and go poop a lot.
Yes, pooping is good.
That's the lesson of that. But on another note, you were just talking about Top Gun Maverick. I actually watched a Tom Cruise movie I had not seen before.
Okay.
American Made from 2017.
Oh yeah,
man, it's very entertaining. It's semi-based on a true story because the historical inaccuracies are pretty way off from what I was reading.
Yeah,
about Barry Seal, who's a airline pilot, gets recruited by the CIA to run reconnaissance through Nicaragua and Cuba and drug countries, basically. And then he gets recruited by the cartels to run drugs and guns for them back to America. But then he turns around, the CIA is like, no, it's okay. We know you're doing that. You can run guns back for us to the people that we want to fight against the cartel. Essentially creating the Iran-Contra affairs that Reagan had to admit was going on during his presidency, because he denied that was happening until there was too much evidence that it was going on. And Cruise is really good in the movie, as Barry Seal. And the film is played a little more quirky in trying to tell the story with an upbeat manner. Because ultimately Barry Seal ends up getting murdered by the cartel. Shortly after he, because the CIA kind of screwed up and put his picture on television, and the cartel was like, "Oh no, fuck this guy," and and they end up going after him. And the movie chooses to keep it light. They allude that he's killed, but they don't.
Show it.
They choose to
show his hands getting cut off and his toes. And
now, from what I was reading, historically, it wasn't that violent. They basically walked up to him at a Salvation Army place where he was doing community service and just shot him right there on the sidewalk.
Shit.
And but it was good. It was on Netflix, and it was Netflix's number one movie one day this week. And it was trending. And I was like, I've never seen this. I'm gonna sit down and watch it. And it's good. It's actually really well done. It's directed by Doug Liman, who also made like The Bourne Identity, and I believe he did Mr. and Miss Smith or a couple other movies. So good director. And but it was a good, interesting story. Even if it took some Hollywood liberties to tell it. It was something I'd never seen, and I'm generally entertained by Tom's movies. And as anybody knows, there's a long running joke about our love for Tom Cruise on the show.
Yes,
and but
a lot of love for Tom Cruise.
the guy makes hella good fun movies, and American Made was really good. I guess the character of Barry Seal is not the first time he showed up in Hollywood. He's been as in the show Narcos. He's been in other movies and stuff.
Okay.
But that was the first one that was kind of done about his life, I guess, and the things he went through. Pretty crazy, man. And a lot of it happened in our neighboring state. He was from Louisiana, so
wow.
The CIA wanted him to try to drop, or the cartel wanted him to try to drop drugs directly into Miami, and he was like, "No, man, trust me, Louisiana. I know the swamps," and he's flying low into the swamps until the DA started getting word of it, and that's where he was dropping them. It was pretty crazy, man. Pretty interesting story, something I had never known before. And
wow,
I of course had heard of the Iran-Contra affairs and how it started, ignited the drug war in the 80s. Everyone knows that. And I never knew some of the story behind it about how the USA got involved so deeply into it. And it was because the CIA kind of put themselves into it by hiring Barry to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost an accidental affair, so to speak. But it was interesting. A good watch, man. If you have an hour and 45 minutes on Netflix to check out, and that's honestly about the only thing I watched this week, other than watching our Astros advance to another American League Championship Series. And don't hate us because you ain't us. That's all I got to say to all those fans out there who keep saying, "Oh, they cheated this or that," blah blah blah. Man, again, don't hate us because you ain't us.
Yeah, I hate that. It's like the games in which they brought up
it's 6 years old.
When we did that. Well, and then the games they brought up as examples to show the league that we were doing that, we lost them all.
Yeah, and so there were regular season games with 20,000 people in the stands. There was no proof ever that they did it in the playoffs with 40,000 people. There was no proof that they did it into the 2018 season, even though the scandal occurred after the end of the 19 season. They never could prove that it happened to 18 and 19. And like you said, the proof they had in 17 was a handful of games. There was proof that our stars, Altuve, Bregman, those guys even used the system.
Yeah.
So it's, and not only that, the Red Sox did it. The Yankees did it. But nobody talks about them.
Well, they removed that ESPN episode from YouTube. They were asking that coach of I think it was coach of the Red Sox, former coach of the Red Sox, and he's like, "Well, yeah, whenever we stole people's signs, this is what we did."
That was Joe Girardi.
Joe Girardi.
Yeah, he was on MLB Network talking about it. Yeah.
And they removed that episode from YouTube because they didn't want to make it seem like it was normal, which it is. Yeah. Everyone tries to, get the signs. Everyone. Yeah.
So,
they've even asked like multiple players. They're like, "Oh yeah, we would try and get them."
Yeah.
Get the signs.
We advance, and sorry to those who didn't, and hopefully we beat the Rangers.
Yeah. If you have an issue, get a tissue.
That's it.
That's right.
What did you watch?
I have a list of things that I watched. I was pretty productive. I haven't been this productive in watching stuff in a while. I watched Haunted Mansion, the remake with Rosario Dawson, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito.
About it, but then
because it was free.
It's on Disney Plus, and I thought about it, but then I was just reading and you can tell me, but I've heard the first hour is like nothing happens.
It drags,
really
man.
Boring.
Yeah, and I thought Owen Wilson would be better. I think, his character, maybe if they used his character different, he could have been better. I'm not sure if I like the comedy aspect. The ending message, the ending conclusion's okay. I would kind of give it like a D+, I think, which is sad because I'm like, man, Rosario's in it. I was like, I got to see her.
This may sound absolutely against my man card. I probably watched The Little Mermaid before I watched that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think The Little Mermaid would have at least would have been better than watching this.
I wanted to sit down and watch The Little Mermaid. I just haven't had a chance to yet. And honestly, it's because my sister, who I am 10 years older from her, that was her favorite animated movie and still is.
Yeah.
And so I grew up watching it a lot because my little sister was always putting in the VHS tape. And so I'm like, I have a general curiosity to see how they did the live action version. So I think I'll watch it eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Other than that, I did watch Loki, the first episode, season 2. Lei Hui Kwan So I'm saying that right?
What did you say? Kihei Kwan?
Kihei Kwan, sorry.
A poor short round, just fuck his name up, man.
Yeah, man. I liked him in the movie. He reminded me of himself from crap. I can't think of the movie name right now. Time travel movie. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm like, and so yeah, he's quirky. He's he's funny, but he's kind of pointless character right now. I'm hope he offers a solution to a problem that Owen Wilson's character has to solve. And, it's got Loki jumping back and forth through time right now. So the story hasn't really progressed. We just find ourselves in a problem and kind of like aftermath of the end of season 1 and He Who Remains, finding out that he exists and, what the TVA really is now. So I didn't watch the second episode. It's been out for a day now, but maybe I'll catch it this weekend.
Is this the first Marvel show to get a second season? I think so.
Yeah, it is. First season was really good.
I know there's a second season coming of What If, but I think as far as the live action shows, this is the first one.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. And I think it'll get better. I don't think it'll be as good as the first season, but I think it'll be okay. Next, Amazon Prime had released a new slasher, and it's kind of in the same vein of Scream, mixed with Back to the Future, mixed with Mean Girls, and that is Totally Killer. And I saw the trailer for this movie, and I was like, man, this seems like a lot of fun. It features this killer called the Sweet 16 Killer. He kills 3 girls in 1987, and the mom is super protective of her daughter because this happened. But then he comes back 30 years later and kills the mom, who is like super prepared for a killer. So it's funny, and they make comments like, what if there's actually 2 killers like in Scream, or what if it's like this horror movie, or oh, you never do that. That's he's like they go to a cabin in the woods. She's like, there's a killer on the loose. We can't go to the cabin on the woods. This is horrible. So there's a lot of those tropes. And what happens is the killer kills her mom, as you see in the trailer. She runs to this time machine her friend invents for a science fair, and she accidentally gets transported to the day of the first murder back in 1987. And it's her job to discover who the killer is, so her mom is prevented from dying. And she's trying to undo this thing. And her mom was part of these girls called the Mollies. And so they're kind of like, they act like mean girls. And of course it's the 80s. So you've got all these 80s tropes in there, like any 80s movie, just throw it in there. Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, whatever. And there's a lot of these tropes, like they don't give a fuck about your feelings. There's no safe spaces, take it, shove it, whatever, so it's pretty funny. And I enjoyed it. It's worth watching. Absolutely. I think it's at very least an A-. I put it up there. This could be like a top, maybe sneak into the top 10 of my favorite horror films in the next couple of years as I rewatch it, but we'll see. I like those comedy horrors. It's good. It's definitely worth a watch at the very least. So check it out. If you haven't checked it out, it's out there. It just came out on the 6th of October. So it's been out for a week, and yeah, man, watch it, enjoy it. You had mentioned last week, Mark, that you started watching Gen V, and I started watching it, and it's got the girl from Harvey Danger in it as the the shrinking girl.
Well, I guess I didn't recognize what she.
Yeah, she looks familiar, and Jackie was like, "Hey, she's like, isn't that Disney girl?" And sure enough,
Henry
I'm like,
Danger?
"Yeah, Henry Danger."
I have to go back. I guess I didn't. I've only watched the first episode, so I guess I didn't recognize.
Yeah, so it's just off-putting that she's a Disney star and she like shrinks herself and wraps herself around some dude's, junk.
Yeah, there's a lot of penis in the show.
There is. Like you said, it tries to be in the same vein and in some instances outdo it. Clancy Brown he's only in the first episode. It's crazy. I guess we'll have some flashbacks of him.
It gets better. Because I wasn't super impressed with the first episode. I was talking to someone at work, and they said, no, it gets a lot better.
I watched the first 3.
Because my first episode felt like, oh man, this is just trying too hard to be the extreme version of The Boys. And I know it's spun off from The Boys, but then I heard it kind of starts leveling off some. It gets a little better. It
does level off. And I will say it is getting better. 3 episodes in. I'll casually watch it to see where it ends. Yeah, just because I miss The Boys.
I still want the flagship show to come back. I'm hearing there's been some talk about February that it's hopefully coming soon. I think Amazon was kind of trying to wait out these strikes to see what happens so their actors can promote the show.
Yeah,
because the actors' strike is still going on, even though the writer's strike is done. And then this week they were really close, they thought, and then all of a sudden the people that, not the actors, but the other side walked away from the bargaining.
Oh, okay.
And all of a sudden things have taken another step back. So hopefully soon. There's still a lot of people in the business think it'll all be over by the end of October. But it just seems like it's been a step forward and a step back with this strike thing.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
Next, I came across this movie because our friend Justin Corbett mentioned that he watched it, and that is Pet Sematary Bloodlines. And he said, hey, if you're a fan of the original, you'll enjoy this movie. And I don't know if you remember watching the original Pet Sematary, 1989.
Maybe parts and pieces of it.
It's got Herman Munster in it. There's a Pet Cemetery.
I think I might have seen it, just,
Yeah, the soil went sour. If you bury someone past the Pet Cemetery, then they come back, but they come back damaged, kind of like Tim Drake did, whenever he came back from the Lazarus pit. Think about that. But this father played by Mulder is his son basically dies in the Vietnam War, and he decides to bury him over there so he can have his son back. His son comes back just damaged as hell, starts killing other people, and it's a prequel to Judd's character, who was played by Herman Munster in the original. So it's a prequel of the story that he tells the neighbor what not to do, but his neighbor ends up burying his son past the Pet Cemetery, of course, in the original. Gage, who's hit by you may remember the infamous scene. He gets hit by the 18-wheeler, and he's not able to save his son, and the son comes back damaged. But it's good. It's on Hulu. It's free. I think it's worth a watch. I think it's
on Plus also.
Might be on Paramount Plus
movie. It's on
Could
Hulu.
Be a Paramount Plus movie. It was on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe I saw it on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, because I want to say it was a Paramount Plus exclusive thing.
That's right. It wasn't Hulu. It was Paramount Plus. My bad. I also watched the Child's Play remake with Mark Hamill, and it's got Aubrey Plaza in it. I did not know it, and I was just like, wide-eyed whenever she came on the screen, and my wife completely saw it. She's like,
I heard
you are so
bad though.
It's not that great, but it's definitely a modern take.
I guess if it's got Aubrey in it, then it's probably got at least a moment or two that's worth it.
Oh, dude, yeah. There's this movie where she's trying to get the doll for free, and she's like flirting, and she's doing that thing with her face. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, dude. And I'm just entranced by this, and my wife caught it, and she's like, "You are so silly." She's like, "You really like Aubrey Plaza?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." I was like, "You got me." I was like, I don't know what to say, So I thought it was
when Scarlett Johansson comes on screen. I mean, she could just wink.
Yes.
And be like, okay, what do you want?
What do you want? What do you need?
Toes licked? Okay,
I got you. Yeah, bathwater.
I don't even like feet, but I'll lick your toes.
It's been out for 4 years, I think, or 3 years. The Child's Play remake, and I will give some spoilers because I just think it's funny how they have it to where he's AI, he can connect to other devices and he can control stuff. And I was like, oh, he has the Force. He can control shit with the touch of his finger. I was like, he's Mark Hamill, he can use the Force. I was like, and then the kid is supposed to give him a nickname, and he's like, what do you want to name me? It's in setup mode, and he's like, Han Solo. And he's like, did you say Chucky? And he's like, not even close. And I'm like, there's some Star Wars jokes in there. I thought it was funny. Hamill does a good job. But yeah, it's, I think that one's on Paramount. I think it's on, no, it's on Amazon. And then I watched the first episode of Shining Vale. It's a new series that came out with Courtney Cox. She's a writer, has a adulterous relationship with a plumber that takes off his shirt, kind of like, old school porno stuff. Plumber comes over, takes off his shirt. He lays some pipe that he wasn't going to lay before.
Wow, what were you really like? Tell the audience.
Yeah, I know. I was like, so Courtney Cox and her husband move into this house, and she starts seeing ghosts and spirits, and there's something she's got to figure out there.
So free time to watch all this stuff.
This was my short week from work. Yeah. I got the rotating schedule, so I only worked 2 days this week. And then I watched the Craft remake, which wasn't that great. The best part about it was that the girl that's featured in the movie is Fairuza Balk, Nancy's character. I didn't know that was a thing
until I came across it the other day. I was straight. I don't remember maybe it was on Hulu or something. It's on. I don't remember. It's like, oh, there's a remake of this, or not? It's not even a remake. It's like a reboot, I guess.
It's it's a legacy sequel.
Yeah,
it's a legacy sequel.
When did this happen?
Yeah, but it's to me, it's not worth watching. Yeah, but it's got Fairuza Balk at the end. She's showing her age. But maybe it was just the makeup, hopefully.
I think it might have been Hulu I came across that, because that is one thing I did last weekend. Hulu was live streaming a lot of the Austin City Limits Festival, and I was waiting for the Foo Fighters to start Saturday night. And that's all I really watched. I watched the Foo Fighters Saturday night, their performance. And I was waiting, and I think I was flipping through Hulu, and I was like, they did a Craft reboot? Like, when did this happen?
Yeah. So that's one of those movies I don't think you can touch. I don't.
I only saw it like once. That was all right.
There were some creepy things that happened in that movie. When they started chanting stuff, they used like real witchcraft chants. The water, it was supposed to be low tide, and the tide just started rising, and the electronics started going out without the water touching the electronics, and it was like freaky. Apparently,
so one of the set playing pranks.
So maybe so. Maybe that's just some stuff they threw out there to make it interesting.
Let's blow through these 3 whole news things before we get to today's featured film.
Yeah.
We covered The Rocketeer a couple of years ago, and there was talks about Disney Plus doing a reboot of The Rocketeer. It's finally moving forward. Disney hired a screenwriter to start moving this project forward, so I guess it's still in development. I was wondering kind of what happened to it. I think it's cool. I like the character of the Rocketeer, and I enjoyed the movie, the 1991 version.
It's a good story.
But I also feel that it's a movie that is ripe for a remake. We talked about it before. A lot of those pulp heroes like the Rocketeer and the Phantom and Flash Gordon, and we love the movies that we have of them, all the ones from the 80s and 90s. But I think it's time to have some remakes of these characters. I love the original Flash Gordon, but I think it would be nice to have a big budget remake of it. And so, the Rocketeer looks like it's going to finally get off the ground. He-Man, Master of the Universe, Revelations, finally coming back. January 25th will return to Netflix after like 3 years since the first 10 episodes aired of Kevin Smith's sequel series to the original series. So finally coming back. So I'm excited for that. I really enjoyed that show. Lastly, this week, I guess there was never an official report on this, but it seems that James Gunn and company have somewhat confirmed through unofficial channels that which we already knew this, but Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot aren't coming back. But Jason Momoa might be coming back as Lobo. And apparently it's almost a done deal, but they're waiting to announce it after they announce more Superman casting.
Yeah.
But it also seems that Gal Gadot being gone is not completely in the woods either, that she may still come back as Wonder Woman. But so I'm not sure what came out of this report this week. We already knew Henry and Ben weren't coming back. They've already recast Superman. We already knew Ben said he's done. He's not coming back. So right choice. I don't know. We'll see. You know, we know from the looks, the sounds of things, these reports about Amber Heard and all the Aquaman cuts that Aquaman Lost Kingdom sounds like it's going to be a mess. It's
Yeah,
starting to get that vibe.
it's going to be a
You know,
bomb.
yeah. People just aren't invested in it with the DCU rebooting in 2025 with
Hmm.
Superman Legacy. So it just feels like I'm off. I think Jason Momoa was great as Aquaman, but I think he'd be a better Lobo. I could see him being
Oh,
Lobo
for
and being
sure.
fucking badass. And I really have a hard time seeing anyone else but Gal as Wonder Woman. So I hope maybe she comes back. We'll
Will
see.
he be Lobo the anti-hero, or will he be Lobo the villain?
No, I think you got to start him with the villain at first, and then make him
Yeah,
become the anti-hero. Yeah, you gotta go hard. You gotta go hardcore. You know,
good
so
call.
we'll see what they do. So yeah, I mean, I'm even feel that way about Aquaman. Like I saw the trailer and it looks cool, but if I don't see it, I don't see it. You know, I'll watch it on HBO Max. You know, it's kind of how I
Yeah,
feel. I don't feel like I
exactly.
need to go to the theaters and see it. So you know, and I'm a huge fan of that universe, and I'm just de-invested from it. I got to see Michael Keaton return as Batman in the Flash, and I loved it, and I'm good. I'm done with that extended universe now. I'm ready to move on to Cronin Sweat and him playing Superman, see what he can do, and he's
Yeah,
definitely been bulking up. There's pictures of him on the internet. He almost looks like Henry Cavill. He's got the beard going. He's bulked up. He's been hitting the weights. I mean, when people saw those photos of him back a few months ago, like, oh, this guy's skinny. Not anymore. He's getting ready. You know,
there we go.
so because it goes behind the cameras. I think James Gunn said February or March. You know, assuming the strikes are over, it goes behind the
Hmm.
cameras, and so it's coming. You know, it's happening.
That's one thing. You can build your body. They've got, man, the right trainer. I'll
Oh yeah.
get anybody in shape. Look at Hemsworth before he became Thor. He was
Well,
kind of
right.
skinny.
Well, that's the thing. Like everyone's like, you know, it's easy. Like when you're normal people like us, you know, when people like we have to work 9 to 5 jobs and take care of children. If we didn't have those kind of jobs and we made $10 million for making a movie, we could go get in shape in a few weeks, you know,
Exactly.
because we could focus solely on that. But
And they get those
unfortunately,
cool things like peptides, which like boost your testosterone and stuff. So your workout is like 5 workouts in one, you know? So it's like,
is that
we
the
don't
same
get
thing
that.
they give porn stars to? No, never mind.
Maybe they use it too in that industry.
Um, let's.
Choke over here.
I've generally always been curious, but never mind. um, Anyway, let's move on to today's featured film. From 1986, a movie that was came very close to being directed by Tim Burton. Like, I mean, all the way up to almost when pre-production started, Burton was involved in this film, and but then he ended up not doing it,
Hmm.
and it moved on to David Cronenberg, who also initially turned down the film.
To do
But
Total Recall.
yeah, he was going to do Total Recall, but then Paul Verhoeven took the Total Recall job. So Cronenberg backed up and says, like, you know, is the fly still available? I'll do it. And uh, about the biggest differences in Cronenberg's version and Burton's version is Burton's version, from what I understand, wasn't going to quite be as R-rated. Burton was going to play it a little more his quirky sci-fi like he likes to do.
Hmm.
But you bring Cronenberg in, and you're in for blood and guts. And
Yes.
but you know, at the same time, this is probably David Cronenberg's most accessible film in a lot of ways because it's pretty straightforward.
Might be his best film.
Oh, I think so. You know, it's a brisk 95 minutes, so it's well paced.
Hmm.
Jeff Goldblum and Geena Davis, who are real life boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, starred in the film, and Geena Davis got the job based on the recommendation of Jeff because they were looking for an actress, and Jeff was like, "Well, what about Geena Davis?" And at first, Cronenberg was like, you know, you're dating her. I don't think that's a good idea." But her audition was so good that Cronenberg was like, "Okay, you're in." You know,
Yep.
so he plays a scientist, and man, I'm forgetting the names in front of me.
Brundle.
Yeah,
Seth Brundle.
Brundle. I watched this a week ago, so it's you know, and he is developing a new tech that he says is going to change the world, and he keeps it very hush hush. And she is a reporter
Reporter.
that
Yeah.
that is very interested in what he's doing. He's willing to give her the story, but he has you know, he gives her some limitations, you know, until she sees it. And her name is Veronica, and So and his name is Seth. That's his first name.
Yeah.
So it's basically he creates a teleportation pods where he can teleport an item from one side of the room to the other. But the problem is he can't seem to get human flesh or no any kind of flesh to work, because they put a monkey in there and they telepod the monkey and it comes out inside out, and it's pretty gross. The coolest thing about this film is the amazing practical effects, which won it an Oscar. And it reminds me, we did The Thing on the show a couple of years ago. Just amazing practical effects. And it just takes you back to a time in which film was a handiwork, a piece of art, which not that it isn't now, but it's a different type of piece of art. It's all done digitally. Where this stuff is done with a love behind it through makeup effects and practical effects. And
5 hours of makeup, man.
Yeah. So Goldblum, or Seth, gets obsessed with his work and feels that he needs to move quicker. And because he feels like someone's going to try to steal it. Like Geena Davis's character, her boss, wants information on this. What is this? And he's all, paranoid that, they're going to start dating again or something, and she'll let it slip. Yeah. So he hurries up his human test and decides to test himself. And he kind of figures out the idea. He thinks he knows why the monkey came inside out, or a piece of steak doesn't taste right. He thinks he figures out the code, so he decides to do it himself. And lo and behold, he doesn't know that a fly sneaks into the pod with him. And as time goes by, he starts not feeling well. He knows something's not right. Well, first off,
he's like a superhero.
Yes, his teleportation is successful. By the way, yes, he's a sex superhero. He starts sleeping around with women. He has all this stamina. He can go for hours, porn star style. Like let's do this,
Strong as hell,
Yeah, very strong. And before you know it, something's not right. He thinks maybe the they never call it radiation, but he thinks maybe the energy he uses in the pod made him sick. He's just not. He doesn't, even as a scientist, he doesn't know until he starts figuring out something's not right, and he slowly transforms into a human fly, essentially. And he starts.
His skin's like a cocoon.
Yes, his skin's like a cocoon. He's starting to lose his mind, but then for a time he comes back around and tells Veronica, like, "Hey, I need help. Can you help me?" But she's struggling with her own of what's going on. She loves him and she wants to help him, but she doesn't know what to do. And before she's able to get him that help, he completely converts and loses it. The cocoon falls off. He turns into a human fly.
She's pregnant, and he wants to transport together so they all become like one person. It's fucking weird, man.
Her boss gets wind of it, and he shows up to try to help her with a gun. And we get the extremely grotesque scene is the flies vomits on him and destroys his hand and his leg. And I'm normally not queasy in movies, but that scene is just like, oh, fuck.
Dude, that's where it loses you.
I'm sitting there watching it going, man, that is fucked up. I think I said that's fucked up like 4 times when I'm watching it.
Imagine being Vincent Price, who on Goldblum's nice note to Vincent Price about his original Fly, he went to go see it, and he said it was really good up until a certain point, and then it was just too much, and that had to be the point. But it's just,
this is coming from a guy who made tons of Hammer horror films in the 60s and 70s that pushed the envelope back then.
Yeah.
Like big time. Hammer horror took a lot. It took Hammer horror a lot of years to get any respect because their movies were considered so grotesque for the time. It wasn't until the 80s and 90s when horror became kind of mainstream that people looked back on those Hammer films and said, oh, these are pretty good.
Yeah.
And so this is coming from Vincent Price, and it does push the edge. And I really started thinking, like I said, I had seen this before. It'd been 25, 30 years since I watched it. And probably when I watched it back in high school, I probably thought, oh, no big deal. That's not gross. And now as an older adult, I'm like, oh, that's pretty fucked up. And for 1986, man, it pushes the envelope pretty strongly. And my thinking was, I guess NC-17 didn't exist yet, but it had to.
Maybe not.
Well, I don't know. RoboCop came out in '88 and initially got an NC-17 until they edited it. So I don't know if NC-17 existed in '86 or not. So I'm thinking if RoboCop got NC-17, like how did this not get it just from that scene alone?
For real.
So that's why I'm thinking it didn't exist at the time. but at the same time, as gross as the scene is, it's fucking awesome.
It really is, man.
The human fly looks badass on screen. And the coolest part, I think the coolest part about this science fiction horror story is that it has a weird grounded reality to it. Like, you buy into that this could happen because the science of it makes sense. Everything that happens, it makes sense. It's not so over the top that you're like, oh, this is stupid. You know? I mean, is that fair to say?
Because it's like, like you watch Willy Wonka and they transport in one scene over there, and he's talking about how it breaks down your molecules and goes to like this second, piece. And so that's what happens with Seth. And, that's of course how he comes to realize that he fused with a fly whenever the computer tells him they detected 2 different genetics transferred. And then, the testing that he's doing, the steak, he's like, all right, try this steak. Now try this steak. She's like, And he's like, what I think is happening is a computer is telling us what it thinks a steak should taste like instead of just doing it, So, they go through the scientific process and everything. So they really, really try and make this as believable as possible.
And how good is Goldblum in this movie? I mean, he's amazing. He sells an audience.
Deserves an Emmy.
Yeah, he sells. Well, they don't do Emmys for television. He sells the audience as and then you feel his heart, his pain as he's going through what he's going through. You don't like him to an extent because he's losing his mind and he's being mean to Veronica and people are around him and he wants to do evil things. But at the same time, there's parts of you that have a sympathy for him.
Yeah, he's just melting away.
Himself.
Yeah. He just couldn't wait. He just could, tried to, do this on a whim. And, her emotions, whenever she finds out that she's pregnant, and
let's get rid of the baby.
Yeah. Which, Cronenberg is the, gynecologist in that dream scene. But yeah, she's her, trauma going through it. She's like, oh my God, what's going to come out of me? And if you watch The Fly 2, what happens.
Which is a horrible sequel. It's just
very horrible. I think it was on TV once and I saw parts of it. Yeah. And I actually, had to look up what the continuity was. So I guess the child's born, Geena's character dies, and he grows into a fly.
Right.
So, but once he finds out she's pregnant, he's like, oh, what we should do? Just transport together and we'll be one big family.
And there were plans at one point for a third one. Because the second one, even though it wasn't good, did make money because of the success of the first one. And there was plans plans for a third one at one point. And they wanted to bring Cronenberg back, but he wasn't interested. Apparently they even wanted somehow to bring Goldblum back in some sort of form, and just no one was interested in doing it. So the third one ended up happening in comic book form later on, but it never happened as a film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently there's a comic out there what the script would have been for the third one. But one thing I like about this movie is it's well paced, as I mentioned earlier. It's a brisk 95 minutes, but it feels kind of epic.
It is. There's build up. There's
good performances.
Pacing.
I also was thinking like her boss. If this movie was made today, the boss's character would be written completely different because he's a sleazeball, pervert. None of that would happen in 2023, because they just won't make a movie like that anymore because of the current situation of the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is a movie that was made in a different time. But now you can't make a movie where you degrade and sexualize women to that extent like he does in this film. So I think it's always interesting when you watch these older films and you see the differences in writing in 1986 compared to a movie in 2023. I'm like, this character would not even exist in a movie today. It just wouldn't happen. Or he would exist, but in a different way. He wouldn't be a sleazeball, And I think it's almost comical to go back and watch. Like,
you look at these 80s movies. Characters.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just really like you said, they were written, at a time where no one cared about anyone's feelings. Nobody, it's so this is the movie. This is what it's going to be, and that's it.
That's it. You deal with it, motherfucker. If you don't like it, oh well.
Yeah, oh well, don't watch it.
You know, yeah, exactly. And but I mean, I'm trying to think what else to say, but I mean, it's not a horror movie in a typical sense for Halloween Horrors Month, but it has some very horrifying elements mixed with science fiction.
It's that sci-fi horror stuff.
It's
yeah,
sci-fi horror. It's more horror based on the obsession of one man and how far he could go. The last 20 minutes definitely have horror elements when the fly comes to fruition. He turns into a fly, and just the grotesque things he does. I mean, the acid vomit's extremely gross and nasty. And then the part where his ear falls off was a legitimate reaction from Geena Davis because she didn't know what was going to happen, and it's almost played.
Wow.
And he's like, "Oh, my ear!" And it's like, and then she rips his jaw off on accident.
Yes,
starts to transform, and that's really like, oh, it's gross.
And then it's like just wiggling on the ground, like his nerves are still working. And
all of a sudden he cocoons out into the fly. And but again, man, I can't remember what director it was that said they were going to win an Oscar for this, and Cronenberg was like, "Oh no, no one's going to watch this. It's horror, sci-fi. No one's going to notice this." And sure enough, they won the Oscar for Best Makeup for this film, and rightfully so because it's phenomenal work. I mean, even by today's standards, it's some of the best stuff I've ever seen. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's just really good work.
Michael Keaton was offered the role of Seth Brundle, but I guess he declined, which that would have been just a match made in heaven. Michael Keaton and Tim Burton, if we had the original. Two choices right there.
But Goldblum did fine. He did great.
Oh yeah. Now it's one of those movies you just couldn't see anyone else doing.
No.
Because such a good job was done.
And Goldblum at this point in his career was a minor star. He had some success with some things, but this movie really turned out to be a big hit for him. Movie made its money back at the box office and did some, and
4 times, 4 times its production budget.
Goldblum went on to, as we know today, he's a legitimate movie star, one of our great actors. And a few years later, we're watching him in Jurassic Park, and the rest is history, as they say. And then it essentially started with The Fly. Like I said, he had some minor success in some films before this, but this was one of his first big headlining hits, for Jeff Goldblum.
Definitely, man. So it's, if you're into those grotesque, gross kind of movies, it's not a torture movie. It's not that kind of gross. It's a completely different kind of gross. And it doesn't matter what your tolerance is. You're still going to be grossed out by what you see.
Yeah.
And it's pretty damn cool to see what they pulled off.
I'm not really, when it comes to film, I'm not usually generally grossed out. And rewatching this, I was like, the acid scene is just, that is, like I said already, that's fucked up.
And how about that arm wrestling scene?
Oh, yeah. Where he breaks his arm.
He starts secreting that liquid to make his bones break down, and he breaks the dude's wrist.
Her boss is in the sequel. I don't know how. I guess he doesn't have a hand or a leg in the sequel.
Weird.
I've never seen the sequel. I've only seen parts of it. I remember Eric Stoltz is in it, and I remember like his eyes bulging out or something. He turns into a fly. It's like I remember parts of it. But I don't think I've ever... I probably did see it all the way through. I just don't recall it at all. And it was so bad. So I'm trying to remember how her boss is even in it. The sequel's on HBO. I watched it even though you have it on your account, I didn't realize it was on HBO Max. And I was on Max the other day, and I was like, and it popped up, because it's Halloween month. I was like, I'm just going to start watching on Max. I'm already on here. And the sequel's on Max too. So if I really want to watch it, I could, but probably not going to.
Yeah.
But The Fly, man. So yes, people, if you want to watch it, is on Max, and you want to check it out. A good one, man. One of the out of all the movies we've done for Halloween horrors, I think this is one that I think probably a top fiver. It was just one of the better Halloween films we've done. Just really
definitely, yeah, man. It's it won an Oscar, so to win an Oscar as a horror movie, absolutely. I mean, gotta be on point. I
mean, I think back on the films we've done. I think 28 Days Later is probably the best one of all the films we've done. I put Nightmare on Elm Street up there, The Fly up there.
Definitely. Nightmare on Elm Street.
As some of the best horror films we've covered. Nightmare Before Christmas, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And
which turns 30 today.
Yeah.
Well, not today, but this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to forego the ghost story this week, mostly because I will take the total fucking blame for that, and I slacked. So, next week we're going to bring you two. Matt's going to bring you one, and I'm going to bring you one. So we're going to make up for it next week.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're going to do this week. We're going to do this week in pop, or this month in pop culture history for the month of October. So, Matt, what you got?
Yep. So just a few years ago, 2021, William Shatner became the oldest person to reach space, traveling aboard Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket in a 10-minute flight.
I remember that. And Shatner still talks about it. He has said it's right up there with the birth of his children. It's just one of the most amazing things he's ever witnessed, And,
Yeah.
And any member of the original Star Trek crew deserves that honor, but why not William Shatner? I mean, the guy who made us believe in space and a better world in what Star Trek tried to present to us.
Yep. And banging aliens.
That's right.
Yes, right.
I mean, hey, come on, man. I mean, ain't one of us out there want to meet some alien chick and think, man, I wonder what's underneath that shirt she's wearing. I mean,
yeah. It's like for science purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
For science. I don't think we've ever mentioned this guy on our show, maybe, but this is his best movie, and that is 1992's Under Siege, starring Steven Seagal.
I'm sure in 300 some episodes, Seagal's come up at least once. Well, we did
maybe
Machete.
so. Oh, we did Machete. That's right.
So we actually done a Seagal movie.
I mean, this was the movie where the chick from one of the chicks from Baywatch jumped out of the cake.
Yes, out of the cake.
Yeah.
This is probably the most direct. There were a lot of Die Hard clones.
Yes.
And but this is probably the most direct Die Hard clone that was obvious. It was Die Hard on a boat more than most of those films.
Big time.
It's like Seagal sat in the theater and watched Bruce Willis making Die Hard, and he's like, "Hey, agent, I need a movie like that. Oh, we got this script, man. Let's go do it."
Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, but I want to have tits in it." Yeah. Or we'll have this chick jump out of a cake.
I remember liking, for some reason, I remember liking the sequel better. I don't know why.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just remember that.
Is that Under Fire? Or
something, I don't know. Under Siege 2, Under fucking Fire, or whatever.
Yeah.
Saul's a terrible actor, but yeah, and speaking of real quick, not to change, but man, Bruce Willis, man, did you see that he can't even speak anymore? It's very sad.
Really?
Yeah, he's lost his verbal abilities, and it's just very sad to see, the downfall of a legend. I don't even want to say
That's
downfall.
sad,
That's
man.
wrong to say because he has a disease. That sounds terrible of me.
Yeah, just the regression.
The regression of a legend.
Yeah.
It's just it's so sad. But anyway, continue on.
Yeah, we covered this movie for my birthday in 1968 this month. Bullet, directed by Peter Yates, starring Steve McQueen and Jacqueline Bisset, is first released. Great movie.
It was good. You liked it a little more than I did, but I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve McQueen's one of those guys that just pure movie star. So just watching him on screen do his thing is worth it. I mean,
yeah, his presence was great.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of the greats of all time. And I don't know if I have a favorite Steve McQueen movie. I like The Great Escape quite a bit, even though it's almost 4 hours, or it feels like it's almost 4 hours. About 3 hours. Very long movie, but it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bullet was good.
I, of course, had to throw in some horror stuff. 2018, this month, Halloween film reboot starring Jamie Lee Curtis, makes a record $77 million for a horror movie with a female lead. Biggest debut of any film with a female lead over 55 in the U.S. I liked her in the first Legacy sequel of Halloween.
Interesting. Too bad Neil Blomkamp could not make his Alien sequel, and it would have starred Sigourney Weaver, would have had a bigger debut. But
yeah.
Anyway. I mean, I'd never seen it. I'm not a big fan of those. I've noticed there's been internet articles lately about. It seems like there's been some backlash on that trilogy now. Now the trilogy is complete. I guess the last movie was pretty bad, and
the last one was weak.
People are looking back on it and saying like, "Oh, it's just kind of a waste." And I guess the rights are up, or someone just bought the rights to Halloween, so there might be more coming. It's like, let it go.
More Michael Myers. And then, of course, this same month in 1978, the original Halloween was released.
No figure. It came out in October. Who would have fucking thought?
Who would have thought, man?
Creepoid Michael appeared breathing behind trees and fences and...
in a Kirk mask. Remember,
It's not my
that is
not
that is
my
a Captain Kirk mask.
not my favorite Carpenter movie.
And then 1984, The Terminator, directed by James Cameron, starring, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, released in the U.S. And I made sure to bring this up.
Leave off Michael fucking Bean, man. Come on.
Yeah, Michael Biehn. I was getting to that. So Michael Biehn, also in the film, he's got these, pretty recognizable Nike high tops in the film. He steals them from the department store after he steals a homeless guy's pants that dude probably shit in. But he puts on these Nikes, and Nike has re-released them as the Terminator high tops. So you can buy Kyle Reese's Nikes, and they come in different colors. And I am so tempted to get them.
That's pretty cool. One of my, I know you love Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, you would have his babies, but Terminator is one of my all-time favorite sci-fi classics. I like Terminator 2 a lot too, don't get me wrong, but something about the original Terminator, it's just so pure and so imaginative that I really, it's one of my favorites. I like it a lot.
Arnold is so cold in it, man.
Yeah, it's just such a good, solid film, and the sequel's amazing as well. But it's just, I always go back to the original because of the imaginativeness of it. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I had never, we had Star Wars at that time and Indiana Jones and Flash Gordon, but I had never seen a science fiction movie with a lot, at my age, a lot of depth with it. Now, years later, I realized there were other movies out there like that, but at the time I saw Terminator, that was something I had never seen before, and it was incredible.
First of its kind, man, which spawned a whole lot of horrible remakes in like France and other countries.
Oh, yeah.
But you mentioned, Sci-Fi Network. You mentioned Disney. Well, this month in 2012, Walt Disney purchases Lucasfilm and its rights for Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchises for $4.05 billion, leading us to what we have today.
And and here's the thing, as the internet haters, despite whether they like The Last Jedi or they don't like Ahsoka or whatever, or they want Kathleen Kennedy to be fired, do people realize that they've already made the $4 billion back and then some? They have already turned profit on what they did for Star Wars and made money. And Galaxy's Edge has been a huge success. I've read that Galaxy's Edge has almost paid for itself already. I mean, they're making money hands on fists. Disney's not about to fire Kathleen Kennedy, people. Get over it. She's making the company a shit fuck ton of money. The Star Wars films have been successful. The Disney Plus shows have been their highest rated shows. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Kathleen Kennedy are making Disney and Lucasfilm tons of fucking money. Stop crying. They're not going anywhere. Now, granted,
they are not.
Kathleen Kennedy's getting older. When her contract is up, she may retire, and then Filoni probably takes over in all likelihood. They have it set up that
more than likely.
And that's
him and his cowboy hat.
And they realize that the success, the not so much success of Solo, and the backlash on the sequels made them sit back a little bit, and that's why they're reassessing what they're doing with the films. And we will get more Star Wars films soon. But they were smart. Like sometimes I feel like Marvel needs to do that. Kevin Feige and stuff, they're just putting stuff out so fast, and maybe they need to take a step back. So I think Star Wars is doing the right thing, and Lucasfilm, like, you know what? Let's get this next set of Star Wars movies right before we just put out product constantly. And I feel like even with the television shows, I mean, I know Boba Fett wasn't as liked by some people or Obi-Wan, but I've still enjoyed all the Star Wars shows way more than I've enjoyed all the Marvel shows. So I still think they're doing something right. And but
and it brought back Ewan and Hayden and
such a huge bombshell.
Characters.
We all thought Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars cartoon was it. We thought we were done with Star Wars, and all of a sudden, when that news hit, we're like, I remember texting friends, people. We were all talking about like, holy shit, we're getting more Star Wars. I mean, that was a super exciting day when they announced that news. I mean, the same day they announced that Episode 7 was coming. They even announced that J.J. Abrams was directing. They had a director on the day they made the announcement. And we were all like, wow, J.J. Abrams, he just made Star Trek. It was awesome. He's going to make a fucking Star Wars movie. I mean, that was awesome. It was a great day for us fans.
For real, man. I remember that day. Oof. And lastly, I don't know how relevant this has been as of late, but 2010, Walking Dead, post-apocalyptic TV series starring Andrew Lincoln, John Bernthal, Lauren Cohen, premieres on AMC.
It's absolutely still relevant. They've got the new spinoff with Daryl. They've got the spinoff with Rick and Michonne coming. It's still a huge
That's right.
property for AMC. It has its viewers. People still watch it. It was just something that I think was hard for me to keep up with as I got busier with the kids. I watched it up through like season 7. So I could always go back and watch 8, 9, and 10 and finish it if I wanted. And I was thinking about the other day, like I was watching something that was talking about The Walking Dead and how it changed television in some ways. I mean, at the time it came out, we were starting to get more cable television programs. FX was doing, The Shield and more adult programming, but you still didn't have the level of violence you got until you got The Walking Dead. And now it's not uncommon to turn on streaming shows or even network shows and get very adult stuff now. The death of Glenn on that show is one of the most brutal things you'll ever see on television. And
dude, the makeup for that.
I sat there. It was like I sat there and I just in silence when the episode was over. It was so intense. Like I had to gather myself. And The Walking Dead changed things for television, and it's highly influential. And I think it's still important today. Even 13 years later, of how it changed the face of television. To a lot of, and it showed that this was a time in which Marvel was kicking off. The Avengers was 2010, if I remember right, and comics were that was a big deal in the comic world, and this was an independent comic that had a lot of success on television. So it was a big. And without The Walking Dead, you don't get The Boys, you don't get Preacher, you don't get these other independent shows. I mean, that's just a fact. That based on comic book properties. So, yeah.
No, that's 100% true. You definitely don't get The Boys without this.
Yeah, Walking Dead, highly influential. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right.
I always try and bring it.
Next week, man, a movie that for 40 years I've avoided watching. I've never. Leatherface kind of freaks me out. It's weird, though, because I've seen about 40 minutes of the Jessica Biel one, the remake, but I've never seen the original. And the only reason I saw about 40 minutes of the Jessica Biel one is because I was still married at the time, and I was in the living room, and Mary was watching it, the ex-wife, and I was like, and I watched some of it, and I was like, "You like this stuff?" She's like, "Yeah, this is cool." And I'm like, "No, okay, I'm going to bed." So that's the only reason I watched parts of the Jessica Biel one. But that is the original 1974, right? Toby Hopper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What happened was true. The most bizarre and brutal series of crimes in America.
Stop!
This is the movie that is just as real, just as close, just as terrifying as being there. Even if one of them survives, what will be left? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
Arguably the grandfather of all slashers in America.
Yes, I will finally sit down and watch it. Probably tomorrow night. I'll sit down and watch this and get ready for next week. And very rare is there a first time watch for me on the podcast, but this will be a first time watch all the way through. And so we'll see how it goes. And I know it's a favorite of yours, and so we'll check it out. And
yeah, man, it'll be fun.
And we'll look back at the real legend it's based on next week, and we'll talk about that along with a ghost story or something for y'all next week on the show as Halloween Horrors 2023 continues. But until then, the rebelradiopodcast.com for all your Rebel Radio needs, the link to all the apps and everything you can find us on. And we do appreciate you for listening as always, and it means a lot to us. And until next time, we continue to be safe. And this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
And remember, as always, just go there and do it.
And do it.